Welcome to 2023's first My Story program. We are delighted to start the series again on the heels of our Thai Golden Globe last week. And here today, hosting once again is Naveen Bisht, who is a longtime Thai supporter, has been a leader in many capacities, and most of all, he's been a leader in really being the man behind the My Story. Today, he is going to be bringing the successful story of Praveer Kumar, who has had many successes, and the most important recent one has been his founding a company, Finxera, I believe. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. Finxera, which was acquired for over $400 million by Priority Technology Holdings. So over to you, Naveen, and Praveer, we hope to have an engaging story from you, and we are delighted to have you both on this forum.
Thank you. Thank you, Anita. I appreciate it very much. Thank you, Praveer. So I think what we'll, since you're going to be sharing your story, so we're really excited to have you. So with that, I'll just like to invite you and hand over to you to share your journey. And then we'll have the Q&A session. So all those who are attending, please start typing up your questions you want to ask in the Q&A part of the screen, so that later on during the Q&A session, we can try to address as many as possible. Thank you so much. And with that, Praveer, to you with our virtual applause.
All right. Thank you, Naveen and Anita, for those kind words, and for inviting me over for this conversation. I have been a part of this a couple of times before, and have really kind of gained a lot of knowledge and information and inspiration from people who have come before me. And I'm happy to share my humble journey with you all, and hopefully it makes sense. And it's an engaging conversation. So with that said, I think the format is that I'm going to share my screen and basically walk you through my journey, my family, and some of my learnings and maybe some values, and then open it up to questions. In the middle, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. If you find something interesting that you would like to discuss more about, I'm more than happy to go into more details about it. But with that, Naveen, should I go ahead and share my screen?
Yes, please.
All right, so let me make sure I get the right one. I hope you all can see my screen right now.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so, I'm, as you said, I'm Praveer. I'm currently at a company called Guardhat. It was based out in Detroit, but now we have shifted our headquarters to San Jose, California. I manage the product technology and the technical operations here at Guardhat. It's been about a year, about 14 months since I joined Guardhat. And prior to that, I was with Finxera. So Anita, the right pronunciation is Finxera. And it's a funny story that how we arrived at that name. I'll get into details of that when I go into my journey about it. But it was a FinTech startup based on banking as a service, which I founded with a couple of friends of mine, and ran for about a dozen years before a successful exit last year. And prior to that, I spent a couple of years at Yahoo following a mentor of mine, David Mariani, who brought me over from Axiom to basically integrate the two big ad servers acquisition that Yahoo did at that point in time, about 2007. That's Right Media and Blue Lithium. Okay. And prior to that, I spent about 7.5, almost 8 years at a company called Digital Impact, which went public, got acquired by Axiom. And that was about a 7.5, 8 years. And prior to that, I was at LSU for my master's degree. I'll go into more details about it when I talk about my journey. And then before that in India, I was with NIT Rourkela doing my bachelor's in civil engineering. So my background is in civil engineering prior to moving into more into the computer science and programming in aspects. So any questions from anybody in that regard so far? Before I move on, I want to make sure I pause and give people time to reflect on it and see if there are any questions on that.
So we can just keep moving, Praveer. We can do the questions towards the end.
All right. All right. So, everybody asks me what do I believe in? And I try to inculcate this in my kids too, but somehow I've never been successful. Uh, I was really inspired by this saying, how you do one thing is how you do everything, by Admiral William McRaven. You guys might know about him. He was a JSOC commander who basically their team caught Osama bin Laden. And this was something that I didn't coin before, but I always believed in it. And this starts from the very beginning, from the day when from the morning when I wake up, when I make up my bed. I want to make it in a way that people can question it or raise fingers about the effort that I'm putting in. And that has translated into my professional life. And somehow, some way, it has, I believe, that has helped me both personally and professionally. My kids won't like that. I mean, they don't, because I keep pointing out, things that they don't do well, or leave the utensils on their beds or in their desks and don't do their beds properly. And they sometimes get agitated or irritated by it. But that's truly, truly what I believe in and try to follow every single day. Maybe not perfectly, but to the best of my abilities. And this is something that's very, very close to my heart. Anybody questioning me on my effort or the work output, it may not be perfect, it may not be accurate, but it will incorporate the level of effort and show that in the outcome. So that's truly what I believe in, and it has served me quite well over the last I would say 20 odd years. Moving on, this is my family. I have my wife and my two sons. From the left, the elder one is Pranav. My wife is Anima, and the younger one is Aditya. Pranav is 18 years old, and he has moved on to his college days in near Boston, Worcester Polytechnic, doing in robotics engineering. Couldn't be more prouder of him. And my younger one is in 6th grade, and he's going to Harker right now. And on the right is my lovely wife, Anima. We have been married for 21 years now. We celebrated our 21st last December. And, I couldn't be here without her. I had a lot of support from my wife and my family. They're not shown in this case, but I have a big extended family. We have 4 brothers and 1 sister. And I am where I am because of the support of the family that I received. I came to the US because my elder brother, who is a VP of International Expansion at Amazon, he is the one who was instrumental in basically showing me the path of higher studies and coming to the US and really leveraging my abilities to do bigger and better things. I still remember the day when I landed in US in 1996. It was August 12th. And I was in the quadrangle in LSU and thinking about what am I doing out here, right? And why am I here? And I truly reflect back on the day, and I said to myself that I will remember that day, that I have to make something of myself. And here I am, almost 20, 26, 27 years later. So one thing that my brother said that really kind of was surprising to me was in 1996, he said, do something with computers. And I had a civil engineering background, and I was really surprised by, like, what do you mean do something with computers? I'm a civil engineering graduate. I came here for a civil engineering major or master's. But he said, combine the two, think of it, this is the future, and what you are trying to do here will serve you well. And over the course of several years, things kind of lined up. I found a professor, a young professor called David Mukai in the civil engineering department. He was working on something related to civil programming for structural engineering library of classes for structural engineering design. I started my computer science and programming career with him in 1996. And as things kind of settled in and lined up, I ended up building a career in this path and arriving at where I am. So I'm truly grateful to not only my wife and kids, but also to my extended family, my brothers, my sisters, my mom and dad, who are no longer with us, but they are always in our hearts and minds. So now let me talk a little bit more about the journey. I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier in my discussions, but I arrived in the United States in 1996 after completing my undergraduate from REC Rourkela, now NIT Rourkela, as a Bachelor of Engineering in Civil Engineering major. And I came to LSU, finished my master's in Structural Engineering and a master's in System Science. And some of my friends had come to the Silicon Valley. This was the boom era, the boom and the bust that kind of cycle goes along. I came to the Bay Area, and interestingly enough, I went to the convention center in Santa Clara for a job fair. And in a day, I had like 6 offers. I mean, if you can breathe, you would get a job at that time. I think that was the case. I don't think there is any particular capabilities that I had, but it was just at the right place at the right time. And I ended up taking a job in a company called Digital Impact. It was an email services provider, the few that started this whole email marketing at that point in time in 1999, where email was getting a lot of traction. And we pioneered the whole concept of customizing the email. We had a patent about tracking open rates with emails. At that time, it was a pretty big deal to be able to sense, can you receive an HTML or a text mail? I mean, think about it, 22 years ago, that was a pretty big thing to happen. And, rose through the ranks, started as an engineer, and, over the next 5-6 years, ended up owning the engineering org. And during that course of time, Digital Impact went public, got acquired by Axiom Corporation, which was a larger corporation based out of Arkansas. And finally followed my mentor from Axiom to Yahoo. And this was right in the middle of the Yahoo and Microsoft kerfuffle going on at the beginning of 2008. And the way we moved into Yahoo was to try to replicate what we had done in email in terms of customizations, analytics on the email side, to bring that over to display advertising. Because of some stuff going on, I ended up working more on the ad latency and big data analytics over at Yahoo for about 18 months. And that's where I met my co-founders, Bill Wilson and Sanj Goyal. And we got together and we were looking into, it's a very interesting story about how we arrived at FinTech, because I had no idea about payments and banking at that time. And we were building a product called cost per lead, or CPL business at Yahoo. And that required integration with the payment processing. So we should be able to kind of charge the customers based on that. And we were trying to do the integration within Yahoo, and the hurdles that we faced in trying to do that, kind of we scratched our heads and said, man, why is it so hard? And it kind of remained in our minds. And what happened after that was Sanj and Bill left first, and they joined this company called National Payment Network. This was in February of 2009. And from there on, they basically guided me in to say, hey, you need to come join us, And we raised money in July, and we started our journey with National Payment Network, which was a payment processor built on top of the FIS, Fiserv platform. And we started trying to do something with FIS, and we ended up with the same sort of resistance, or very difficult to integrate, very difficult to leverage the capabilities and incorporate that into our use case or workflow. And it was really very frustrating for us when we did that. And that's when we thought, man, it can't be that hard. And we gave up on FIS and we said, we are going to do it on our own. And it was a pretty bold thing for us to say, and a naive thing for us to say. And I still remember our CFO, who left the company about 6 months down the road, wrote to our investors saying, these guys don't know what they're doing. They're going to get you into trouble. You need to make sure you account for that. Our investors at Foundation Capital really didn't show us that email. They showed it to us like 3-4 years later from that point in time. But it was really that they still had the confidence in us, and they let us pursue what we are trying to do. We ended up building our own banking as a service platform based on what we found or what we encountered, the resistance with Fiserv and FIS. And as things lined up, we renamed the company and recapped the company to call BancBox, or Bank in a Box. This was about early 2012, and Dropbox and others were coming up. And the idea for us was primarily that, at that time, Stripe and other payment processings were coming up. Our thought process was that payments and bankings are going to evolve. There is going to be a lot more required than pure transaction processing, which was the prevalent thing, card processing at that time. And it would require somebody to collect, store, and then send money rather than simply transact and send it over. So that was our thought process, that online marketplaces and others are going to get more and more involved, and they would require these payment processing. And we kind of sidestepped from what Stripe was trying to do, which was to enhance the card processing and make it more accessible to these developer community and kind of grow from there. As you can see, they were pretty more successful than we were, but as luck would have had, that's how we bifurcated in our approach in what we were trying to do. And we plodded along. It was a tough sell. We had to kind of build it from scratch. We had to go in, and in 2012 we had one TechCrunch article, and we had 400 companies in our sandbox. And we thought, man, this is awesome. But one of the lessons that we learned was, it's not just enough to excite people. You got to be able to operationalize it and actually get these people onboarded, which we were not prepared for. So we got our first knock there to say we couldn't convert these customers or these prospective customers' leads into actual paying customers because we were not prepared to do the underwriting at scale. So we kind of stepped back and really thought about, all right, what we are trying to do. So we decided to move up the stack and actually provide a solution that encompasses the money movements and all of the regulatory and the compliance needs, and expose that to customers, which we did. And we called it the BancBox Invest product, which was primarily catered towards crowd investing companies, which some of them are still around, which is AngelList and Funding Circle, amongst others. And at one point of time, AngelList, the entire processing of their fundraising, about $150 million that they did, was going through our platform, where they can open up bank accounts on the fly for the escrows. They can open up investors' account. They can open up the issuer's account, and then do the money movements in an automated programmatic manner, and also do the refunds and the returns if things don't work out. But then we realized that, yeah, great, there's a great service that we are providing, but we couldn't monetize it because, AngelList and others were getting their unicorn statuses and $1 billion, and here we are picking up pennies from the floor. So we again had to step back and really realize that, boy, that is not working either. And at that point of time, we were this toolkit, and we were trying to build these several different businesses and go out to market with them. And one of our core businesses, which was payment processing for the debt settlement business, was taking off, but we were not paying enough attention to it. And we got a little bit of a knockdown there with our current customers. And that's when we just step back and say, okay, this is not working. We really need to focus on consolidating what we have and basically focus on this particular core business and really grow that. And in 2016, that's what we did. So when I talk about the knockdown and the pivots, those were some of the big ones. And we had several different near-death experiences while doing that. We were partnered with banks. They would ask us to move out within a matter of days, sometime even weeks. And we had customers because their uh, reviews would occur, the audits would occur, and the regulators didn't like them doing this processing for us. They had not done the proper due diligence with their regulators beforehand, so that really knocked us down. You know, sometimes we had bugs in our systems that could cause a lot of reconciliation issues. So those were some big learnings for us to really kind of be, persevere and be patient and be focused and keep moving on to it. And we got lucky, our luck had a lot to play in this part. I mean, things started to pick up in 2016 and 17. We had consolidated and focused on our operational excellence in productizing our operations, and then things started to take off. And in 2018, we sold the company to the PE, who basically took out the VCs and came in and essentially put some more capital into the company as growth capital. And we sold them for $120 million, and they asked us to continue and basically contribute back into the recap. And that ended up being a very good thing because the private equity firms, they ended up selling it to Priority Technologies in September of 2021 for about 4x of what they invested in. So that became a pretty good outcome for all of us. And I decided to kind of move on from there after we finished the transaction, because I was really focused on a smaller organization. I really thrive in a smaller organization, and that's my forte. And a friend of mine who had started this company called Guardhat in the industrial tech space, which I had no background in, asked me to come in and really kind of help him really repivot the company from a hard hat company to more of a SaaS-based software company. And this is what I've been doing for the last, I would say, 14 months, is to really understanding that business, understanding that vertical, and then pivoting it towards more of a SaaS-based software company. So that's my professional journey. If I can summarize this over the last, I would say, 23, almost 24 odd years, it's been a lot of patience, perseverance, knockdowns, a lot of highs, very big highs, a lot of lows, and a lot of learnings. So it's been a great 23, 24 years I've been based out of here. And several times I've been lucky. We have been lucky to be where we are at the right place at the right time. And it's been a great experience for me personally. So moving on, what some of my learnings are, and I'll give some examples of patience and perseverance. If you can look at my background, right, I have stuck around places for much longer than a typical Silicon Valley experience, which I believe was 18 months last time I looked at it, and I've been in places for 7 years and 10, 12 years and 2 years. So I think one of my learnings was, be patient, persevere. There are going to be lots of highs and lows and knockdowns. You got to take it in stride. It becomes easier as time goes and you get more experience in taking those knockdowns. And also, if you get more comfortable financially on things, and it becomes easier to do that. So, as we moved along, it became easier and easier. The second point was more about being a little bit more naive. And I think it's a learning, and I think it's a good learning personally for me. When we went into the FinTech space, we didn't know. Everybody kept telling me, no, you can't do this. How can you do that? Fiserv does take 6 months. You can't do that. That's not right. And, we were a lot naive at that time, to be quite honest. We really didn't know the problems from the inside. And we came out from outside and took things into stride that it's software. We can solve for it. Why not take a stab at it and make it better? We can't live with the status quo. So that naivete worked out very well. And I think that's a big learning. And I'm bringing that even in the industrial tech space. I have not lived and breathed. I don't know that space. But I think that there is a lot of software offerings and technology advancements that can move in the industrial space that we take for granted in our day-to-day lives that are not there right now. The third one is productizing operations. And this was based on my experience when I had to start taking over operations for the company in Finxera, because we had a big kerfuffle with one of our biggest customers. We had a low NPS score of less than 30. And, my co-founders and I decided that I have to own it. And I still remember it was Thanksgiving of 2015. And I was not very happy about doing operations because I don't typically enjoy that. And I was trying to think about how can I make it better for me to run this. And I listed down that I really want to implement operational excellence across the company, across different areas. And we spent the next 18 months really focused on knocking down individual verticals within the company, whether it's operations on the compliance side, network operations, product, engineering, QA, sales. We really focused on different areas of operational excellence, and productizing operations became a key metric for us. We looked into areas where, why are we doing this? Why does it take so long? Why does it have to be done in Excel? What can we do? How can we do this in the product and incorporate this as a part of the product itself? I tell you that really paid a lot of dividends for us. So that's one of my key learnings, particularly from an operations perspective, that it's got to be incorporated, productized, become a part of the overall product here. And the technical debt is a big one. We ended up rewriting the entire code base in 2018 and 19 at Finxera that we started in 2009. We were putting band-aids on it for the last several years, and it was becoming very unwieldy. And we knew that this thing is going to take off, and we wanted to set ourselves up for the next 10 years. And it was a collective decision of us to say, we really need to pay our tech debt, figure out, learn from what we have learned about our business, and kind of tweak our product and technology to match that. So, I'm happy to say our NPS score increased to high 80s, and our overall throughput, because of productizing operations and paying off our tech debt, we are now set for the next 10 years at least in our technology in the previous company. So it's really one of the big learnings that I have that I think served me very well. And finally, the last two ones is be outcome driven. I think it's very self-evident. Whenever we go into meetings and all, I'm very focused on driving what do we want to achieve and how do we want to get there and who does what. And the process matters less more than the outcome. Finally, on the vision and the alignment, this was learned by me from when we had to make decisions on individual, very small things, and we were trying to weigh the pros and cons, having the clarity of vision of why are we doing it really helped align the team and help us make decisions, whether it's on the product side, operation side, or any other aspects of our business. So I think even I'm following that even now at Guardhat, where we are clearly trying to align where are we going to go, how are we going to get there, why are we trying to go, and it helps people make decisions in terms of prioritizing what they are working on and make decisions based on those priorities. So really, those were some of my key learning areas, and hopefully that helps you folks. And I would be happy to answer any questions in that regard. Finally, I hope this is the final one, and I think I'm getting ahead of myself in terms of the time. I didn't think I'll take 30 minutes, but here we are. My interest, I picked up golfing. I'm not good at it, but it's a very much of a release for me. It's a fun thing for me to go do with my friends and with my kids from time to time, but I really like doing that. Baking is something that I picked up during COVID at home. My younger son gets a lot of credit for it. He's the one with a sweet tooth, and we used to hang out and basically cook stuff for us and the family, and we would find out things. And one of the things that I like about baking, it's that it's more of a science rather than an art. You know, you go into one step after the other, which are very precise, and the results are very defined based on that. You know, and that's one of the reasons that why I gravitated towards it. That it's more of a science rather than an art. And finally, you know, reading and sports. I have been an avid sports person. My ankles have given away, so that's why I've kind of moved into golfing. But I was a college level badminton player, table tennis, cricket, volleyball, field hockey, you know, you name it. And I played and enjoyed watching those sports, which I do even today. And I'm sort of reading these days, but you know, I used to love a lot of fiction novels in my earlier part, you know, and but these days it's more autobiography and biographies and more non-fiction related stuff that I read. But I wish I can do it more. For some reason, I haven't been doing that for a long time. With that said, I think that's all I had to share. Hopefully, that was interesting, you know, from my perspective and my journey perspective. And I would hand it over to Naveen to see if you had, if there is anything else that we want to kind of discuss.
Thank you, Praveer. Thank you for an amazing sharing your amazing journey. Really appreciate it. So let me start with questions. In the meantime, if someone else in the audience also would like to ask. So when you, one of the questions I usually ask all the entrepreneurs who come and, you know, obviously share their insightful journeys and lessons is, when you were growing up, if you reflect, was there anything that inspired you that you wanted to become an entrepreneur?
You know, honestly, I not really to become an entrepreneur. Okay, I'll be very honest with you. I had my siblings were like, you know, I was a sportsman. My siblings were much more accomplished than me. I was just trying to keep up with them, to be quite honest. Okay. My elder brother, he was a top 10 guy in the state of Bihar in terms of academics. My second brother, who's a brigadier in the Indian Army, he went to NDA in his first attempt after 10th grade. My brother in Amazon, he's a guy who doesn't need to do a lot of studying. He gets things like this. My sister is a doctor, so I had a tough time with my siblings. So all I was trying to do was to survive and keep up with my siblings. And one of the things that when I came to the US was, hey man, don't embarrass yourself. You can't go back with nothing in your hand to India as a failure, right? You can't stand up to that. Yeah. So when you think about what's inspired me, a fear of failure really inspired me. And honestly, I was an accidental entrepreneur. Okay, I'll be very honest with you. It wasn't as if I had this great big urge. I think it was more like circumstances and choices that I made that landed me where I am. That is more of my entrepreneurial journey rather than, you know, this is it. But the second time, right now, what I'm doing, it's more of a choice. I'm really passionate about what I'm doing right now and where I'm headed with the industrial tech and what I'm trying to do. So if there is any takeaway from it, you know, sometimes you can be an accidental entrepreneur, but you really need to make the most out of it. Do your part and let things fall into place.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, actually, I call it something like first time driven by failure so that you can continue to succeed. Next time is like you're in the flow right now, right?
Yes, exactly. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So one question from the audience is, how did you market your business when it was brand new? I guess in Finxera, or when you're calling it BancBox?
Yeah. So, you know, to begin with, we were trying to do it more on the viral way, right? Get an article in TechCrunch, get the virality out of it, get people excited about the product and make it very easy to use, right? So really not a big marketing effort, more of a word to mouth and use case driven and a problem solving way.
Yeah.
Okay. So we did that to begin with. We had a lot of success in terms of the marketing side of it. We didn't have a lot of success in converting those leads into actual paying customers because of our lack of conversion metrics and the process that we have to convert, right? I think that's where we fell down, where Stripe really succeeded, because they solved one specific problem to say, hey, if you are a developer and you want to start card processing, you don't need to do anything, just sign up and start working on it. And once you go over a certain threshold dollar amount, we will start figuring out and doing more due diligence on you. For us, it was more heavy front-ended, and it took us a while to do that. And that's the marketing. And for our other businesses, as we moved along, because we were not successful as a toolkit, for providing other companies, we ended up moving up the stack and providing solutions like in the debt settlement payment processing, where we can manage the money movement and put some gates around it that we can control. Where is the money going to? Who is the money coming from, right? And for that, in that business, we had a channel partnership approach. We didn't go directly to the consumers. We had a B2B to C type of an approach, where we found channel partners who invested in sales and marketing, and we became a critical part of their overall operations and business. And that really was successful in that regard. And that is the learning that we are using even now with Guardhat, where we are moving away from the end customers. We are trying to find channel partners who make our products and our services an integral part of their offering. And they go and sell to the end customers, which is the enterprises in the industrial space.
Awesome. So next question, before that, I want to ask, because it will lead to the question from the audience. Did you, when you started this, when BancBox, was there did you raise angel money, or did you all bootstrap it first?
No, so it has a very interesting process. So the company originally was called National Payment Network, right? And the investors had basically funded it for a very different use case, right? They had raised about $5 or $6 million to enhance what you call, bi-weekly loan payments, right? So when you buy a car or when you take a mortgage, you're making a payment once a month. So you make 12 payments. Instead of that, if you make a payment every 2 weeks, you end up having 13 payments in a year, because you have 26 weeks or 26 half weeks. And you make one additional payment that accelerates your principal drawdown, and that gives you benefit. And we would automate all of that. That was the original idea, but it was not sustainable as an online business because it was primarily sold through the dealer channel. When we came in, we said, hey, you're using one use case. If you can basically abstract it out, there are a multitude of these use cases that you can use, and those are more vital. So what happened was, when we came to the company, it was NPN, but we basically recapped and rebranded this company, raised additional capital of about 6 million from the existing investors. And that really bootstrapped us, along with some revenues coming with our exit. And since then, we never had to raise capital. So if you really think about it, we converted that $6 million of capital invested in the company into a $450 million outcome in about 10, 11 years.
So leading to the next question from Prakash Narayan is, can you talk about how you landed your first investor, Foundation Capital?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, it was more like, again, as I said, Foundation Capital had invested in this particular venture, which was NPN. And Charles Moldau really brought in Sanj and us to say, hey, what can you do with it, right? Think about what you can do about it. And we basically came up with this idea of abstracting it out. And that's when they put in more money, right? To say, yes, and this was in the height of, you can say, financial crisis. This money was raised in July of 2009, which was like just coming out of the whole financial crisis. So it was kudos to Charles and Sanj and team who were able to kind of think through this and put this money together.
Oh, that's beautiful. So the next question is from Vivek Bhansali. Thank you for sharing your journey. It's really inspiring to hear your story. Question is, how did you go about finding a mentor? That's the one. And then what advice would you give someone who's looking to find a mentor to help navigate professional career or and entrepreneurship?
Sure, sure. That's an interesting question. First answer is I didn't go after looking for a mentor, right? I really looked for a mentor, who actually kind of guided me, whom I looked up to within my own organizations. So David Mariani, right? I don't know if he if he would consider himself as a mentor to me now. We have become a very good friends, but I still consider him to be a mentor because he has a lot more experience and thought process about how he does things. So he came into digital impact in 2000 from an acquisition of his company to digital impact. And I started working in his organization as an engineer. And I really looked up to him in terms of how he had built his company, how he actually managed the organization. And to his credit, in 2003, 2004, I actually resigned from Digital Impact, and I had taken up a job in Amazon Web Services. I would have been like the first two-digit employee in AWS in 2003, 2004. And he basically, when I told him that I'm moving on, he was not even my direct boss. I had someone else in the middle with him. And we had really grown up from like 6 or 7 people to 125 people during the dot-com boom,
Right.
and then went right back down to 7 of us when the bust occurred over the next 2, 3 years. And it was a Friday evening, I still remember. And I went to his office and said, "Hey, I just want to give you a heads up. I know, I don't need to talk to you directly, that I'll be moving on." And he sat me down and said, "Tell me, what is your aspirations?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just like, 3, 4 years in my career. I really was not very clear. I took where like maybe this is a good job and I'm gonna go." And he sat me down and said, "Think about this over the weekend and tell me which direction you want to go. Do you want to become a technical manager? Do you want to become an architect? Do you want to remain a coder? As a single?" And I really thought about it. And I went back to him on Monday and said, "You know what? I want to go into technical management. But I don't think you can, there are no opportunities here. We have 7 of us. I got a boss." I mean, he said, "You don't worry about it." And, he had the foresight, and I don't know what he saw in me, but he let go of my boss and promoted me to his position to keep me in that job. And I can't be more thankful because my whole career, and when you look at some pivot points in your life, that was one of the pivot points in my life. Staying in the Silicon Valley, staying in the business, learning to become from an engineer to becoming a technical management and learning to build and grow and manage teams. That really started my real professional journey and helped me find my strength. Because to be quite honest, I'm not the best coder out here. People would blow me away in a second in terms of coding. But where I find myself and the niche and what I bring to the table is the intersection of business and technology and trying to really break down what the business needs and how can technology support that business and not really be too far in any one of those areas. So to really get back to the question, what would I recommend in terms of mentor? Find someone whom you really feel comfortable with, whom you look up to, right? And whom you can really kind of believe in, right? That when they say something, they're not just saying to say it for the sake of it, but they really mean it.
Yeah.
And that's what has happened. And I have been lucky. I've had several mentors. My brothers have some of them, but I really looked up to Dave to really help me. And I go to him in terms of, "Hey man, how we do this? What you would do in this situation?" And he has really helped me in those areas.
Nice. Yeah, actually, that's a very good point you brought out, Praveer, because I have also seen a lot of friends over, a couple of decades here, where sometimes companies don't do well, and some of the folks, a lot of time people want to just, eject due to whatever the personal reasons, etc. But some of those who stay around end up, and company turns around and they've reached greater heights.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So all right. So with a next question, what I would like to ask you is, what are some of the things? I mean, it was a good, nice, long, hard-earned journey, I call it, even though it was a very great outcome. So what were some of the things you are proud of while you had been building your company from, BancBox to Finxera to finally Priority Holdings?
Yeah, Before that, I'd say I still have this urge that, my original idea and goal was to disrupt payments and banking. I really felt that this particular market requires a lot of, we were a little bit ahead of the game, to be quite honest. We were thinking about payments and banking in 2010 and 11, and it has really taken off over the last couple of years with the likes of Synapse FI and, a lot of these companies who are solving a sliver of the problem, which is good because they're very focused on it. So what am I proud of? Really being able to succeed, being in a position where I'm financially comfortable, making my family and my friends proud of me. And the other one was building a successful business that you can call your own. We had 300 people that, in India, we built a team in Chandigarh in India with 300 of our employees. And we had about 20 people here in the US. Being able to kind of build something like that from scratch, from the ground up, and looking back, we were amazed. And we never thought we could be where we are. We had no doubts about the fact that we could fail any day. I mean, we were not confident at all. And we were always like questioning ourselves and say, what the heck are we doing? Is it going to succeed or not? So I'm really proud of the fact that we persevered, you know, in spite of all the challenges, whether by luck, by hard work, combination of both, you know, I think those are the things I'm really proud of.
No, that's thank you so much, Praveer. Next question is from Abhishek Karnik. How did you keep the big players at bay that could have probably easily displaced you? And what was the secret sauce?
Yeah, that's a good question. The secret sauce we dare to do the difficult things. Okay. Payments and banking were very icky things, right? Everybody was looking at the shiny object up at the top and say, oh, we can make this better. But from us, or our ethos was, hey, let's do the harder things. What I mean by that is in payments and banking, compliance is hard. Operations is hard. Reconciliation is hard. So when I talk about compliance, we spent 2 years getting money transmitter licenses across all 48 states. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 25 companies in US have that. Amazons and Googles and Apples of the world do, and in Western Union and MoneyGrams of the world do. But when you look at smaller companies at our size, not a lot of them have that. It took me really 7 years to build a reconciliation engine with our team that really kind of solved that problem. Think about us having over $700 million of average daily balance, over 500,000 customers, over millions of transactions occurring against those. And it was not pure straight transactions. There were 3 distinct systems where you had to manage those money and keep track of it. So we had to, when we rebuilt our system, we had to think about these ledgers, understand them, and really reconcile them. So a combination of compliance, a combination of our operational excellence, and a combination of, I would say, ickiness in operations. That really prevented some of these big guys to kind of come into that space.
Yep. So next question is, there have been a lot of fintech startups in the fintech space, as you know, since I would say, I guess I would call you guys to be one of the earlier pioneers. And then, Stripe obviously kind of put it into the, got the race of, we have a lot of fintech customers, they're compliance customers as well. So, and of course, many of them probably won't be able to survive. And you have these valuations also going down right now because of the gyrations in the market last, I would say 12 months or 10 months. So how do you, what would be your advice to those, if there are some fintech entrepreneurs in the audience or the new ones, to rise above the noise as well as be able to make their mark?
Yeah. So first thing is, what we learned, we always managed our finances very closely, right? We, managing our money in terms of not or spending it in the areas where we really need to spend it. That was one big thing, to conserve cash, prepare for the rainy day. I would say that is one. not just on the fintech space, but that's true for any company. I'm trying to do that with Guardhat right now.
Yeah.
Things are, we are trying to raise capital, we are trying to reduce our expenses, we are trying to cut costs. So that I'm following that even myself in this startup here. Okay. So that one, and then really, if you can focus on providing the value to the customer, right? Is your product really being used by your customers? Is it valuable to them?
Mhm.
And our approach was we were sticky with our customers because of regulatory and the ickiness of the payments and banking, that they could do it themselves and they deem it as an integral part of their offering. So we ended up having the stickiness with our customers that allows us to grow with them in that regard. So, have raised the capital at the right time. If you had raised it last year, that's great. You're sitting pretty, survive this downturn, ride it out. We were able to do that in the previous company because, before we were just able to raise it right at the end of the downturn. And then we were able to make it profitable from there on. We never raised capital. We lived within our means. So that's the third one, I would say.
So we have a little more time. So one is any particular area you see? I know you're busy with Guardhat, but it's a little bit in a different area than your last company. So any advice or any opportunities do you see in the fintech area? Let's say if you decided today, hey, let's say if you were to start again in the fintech area or someone else, some ideas for some of the folks who are in the audience they can benefit from.
Right. I always had, if I had to do it all over again, right, I would really bring back the concept of banking as a service, right? And what I mean by that is I still feel that it is hard to do that. Imagine PayPal for businesses, right? Wherein you want to open up an account on behalf of your customers and manage their money in an online escrow manner, in an easy to use way. Right. There are portions of it being done by companies and pieces of it being done, whether it's treasury management, whether it's card processing, whether it's debit card management. But really, if you think about it, if you can become the modern bank that whose processing is dependent upon providing these services, right, to the businesses, and figuring out a way to really manage the regulatory side of it, wherein you can manage the risks of these businesses through a modern kind of AML or anti-money laundering flows. I think that's still an area that, I haven't done a real analysis on it in terms of the business marketplace, but personally for me, when I talked about payments and banking, I really wanted to think about that holistic offering that allows a particular company who wants to incorporate payments and banking as a one-stop shop where they don't need to worry about opening up an account or managing the money. They're simply using that because you don't think about doing that when you want to use Twilio for telephony, right? You don't do that for some of the other capabilities like hosting, with AWS. You don't think about it, right? You take it for granted that, but when you think about even with Stripe and others, having those accounts, it's still not comprehensive. It's too difficult. You need to simplify it a lot more, right? And that is an area I still feel that is a possibility. Right?
How do you, so just kind of following up on this same topic is how do you see Brex and companies like that, like Veeam and the Brex is being in the business to business. So how do you see those kind of, I mean, there are a lot of those virtual businesses have come up, right? These which make it, because, otherwise, even if your own bank, even if you're sitting there with tons of money there you raised recently, still they charge you these, $35 wire transfer and ACH also, which is kind of ridiculous. So Brex is giving you almost, free anyway, not almost, just by. So what do you think of those businesses and all those, these kind of charges that you guys apply?
Again, the Brex and the Veeams of the world are solving very specific problems, right? And they have to go solve. When I talk about Brex, right, what are they doing? They're having into corporate cards, right? And expense management. That's a piece of it, right? So the things are, you can go into the infrastructure layer or you can go into the application level. I consider Brex and Veeam to be at the application layer where they're leveraging these capabilities. Now, can you be at the infrastructure layer? Be that banking as a service pipe, right? That everyone is plugging into. And you can do it in a cheaper, scalable manner. To me, that is still valuable, in my opinion, because otherwise, even today, Veeam and others have to stitch this together through different mechanisms. You have still not unlocked the total potential of what can be done if this were so easy to use and leverage. What Stripe did to card processing, right? I mean, hey, just come in and do that for banking and cards and debit cards together as a one-stop shop.
Right. Absolutely. So one other question again from Abhishek is you talked about managing regulations across multiple states. So he's saying your thoughts on crypto payments, and is that the next big thing in fintech? Regulation is necessary there. Any
Yeah, I still remember like Ripple and all came to us in 2014, and they were freaking just giving away Ripples to us to say, hey, if you just allow us to be the, become our, what do you call, the egress points and all, because of our relationship with our banking partners and all. Honestly, I am not big on crypto. I still feel that the blockchain is a bigger deal, and there are so much applicability of it, and crypto has such regulatory air on it. And I'm sure I'm wrong, and I've been wrong because I did invest in it and look where it has gone from where to where. So, but my personal feeling is, I think it's just crypto is hard. And then I just don't think these central bankers are going to allow to have a digital currency which is outside their realm. You look at India, you look at China, they're building their own national currencies from there on. So my thought process is, if there is something to be had on the blockchain ledger and more towards the Ethereum-based places, that is a better place from my perspective.
All right. So let me, last question. I guess we are almost getting to the time. So any wisdom for any aspiring entrepreneurs, anything else you'd like to share, or, in terms of I already asked you about the question in the fintech space, but to start, or anything else, trends and opportunities, or anything else you would like to impart?
No, not a whole lot of wisdom, I would say. I don't consider myself any wiser than anybody else in this call. But, from an experience perspective, what I would say is I ended up taking some calculated risks, right? And I did take an opportunity to take that, to leap into that risk. And I did have the backing of my family, and I had to take a calculated risk in that reward. So look out for those, right? Evaluate them. And I know at that point in time, it's very difficult to gauge where it will end up and whether it's going to be successful, because I didn't know in 2009 that this is going to work out, to be quite honest. Every time I look back and said, why did I stick with it? Right? I mean, it's just something that happened. But when I look back, it's like, okay, I took a calculated risk. I said, hey, here is what I'm doing. This is the worst that can happen, and I can live with it.
Right.
And that to me was how I decided my level of risk. Even today, when I went to Guardhat, I'm like, okay, I'm leaving a cushy job. I could stand here for the next couple of years, 2 years, and I had the team set up. I'm very comfortable with it. But I'm going to do this because the downside risk for me is mitigated. And the upside is high. I'm going to have a lot more fun. I'm working with friends. If this thing takes off, this is great. And that's what I would recommend. Sometimes, if you can, in your early 20s, early 30s, where a lot less responsibility, go take the risk if you can.
No, thank you so much, Praveer. With that, we are right on time. And so I appreciate your taking the time and sitting at the airport and really sharing your insights. Have a safe drive back. I think it's kind of raining outside, I believe. But with that, thank you again very much. And thanks to everyone. And really for our first My Story of the Year. And obviously, Praveer, you made it amazing, and really appreciate your time again.
Thank you so much, Anita and Naveen and the rest of the Thai team for giving me this opportunity. I hope this was helpful, and I appreciate your time on this. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Praveer, and thank you, Naveen.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Neha.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye now.